Hanging out with Internet Marketing Ninjas. Today we've got Jim Boykin, CEO of Internet Marketing Ninjas, and Smarty, who's in charge of communities and social for us. My name is Thom Craver. I'm VP of Development and IT, and our wonderful guest today is Jen Slegg, search marketing consultant extraordinaire. Jen, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Jen's been in the industry, what, 15 years now? Long, long time.
Long time.
We'll say a long timer. We won't say other words, but you might know her as @JenStar on Twitter. But Jen, we got you here because you've been putting some interesting stuff up on the SEMpost.com, and we've got Google rewrites the quality rating guide. What SEOs need to know about Google quality. Let's just start first. What is this quality rating guide? What does it mean for SEOs?
So Google employs this mini army of people. They're regular people, people like your mom, your sister, that kind of thing. They're not people who are tech savvy. They're not people who know anything about SEO. But they go and they quality rate various websites. Google gives them a random list of websites or queries, and they have to go to these websites, these landing pages, and make a rating about the quality of the site and the quality of the page based on a whole wide variety of criteria. So obviously for webmasters, this is a really good insight to the things that Google is looking for, that they want to see ranking better, and the kinds of things they want to see ranking not so well. So that is why all SEOs are all over this right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that, I guess the common thought is that humans don't directly influence the ranking results, and there is a little bit of this human factor with the quality raters, in that there's thousands of these people rating the search result pages from Google, and they're rating the pages that show up within the search results on various factors. And when Google has thousands of people running the same searches and giving the same scores to particular sites, they then are using those signals in their algorithm to better their results.
Yes. Well, they don't use directly the results. So if you were nefarious and you managed to get yourself into the program, you couldn't just go and give all your competitors low scores. It doesn't influence the rankings directly, but it's really good insight about the things that Google's considering when how they're ranking things.
Yes, and I'm sure that there are some of those signals when Google finds that, let's say that 10,000 people ran a search for car insurance, and let's say that 9,990 of them said that the third site down, Bob's Car Insurance, that if they all rated it as an untrustworthy site and low quality, then there's probably a good chance that Google is using those signals to be like, this site is pretty poor. So it's hard for one person to really influence it. They're aggregating it from lots and lots of people.
Yeah, and ideally, then Google's going to go to that Bob's Car Insurance site and see, okay, people are saying this is a poor quality. What are some of the signals we can take from this low quality site to build into the algorithm, so more sites like this site don't come up in the search results for any variety of searches?
Yep. Yeah, and the rater guidelines are also really good to get an understanding of the things that Google is looking for, and those are a lot of the things that I'm sure we'll be talking about. But there's certain signals that we can tell are really important to Google, of which they're looking for.
Yes, for sure.
So so those people are known as quality raters, and every so often, Google comes out with this quality rater guide. It's the booklet for those quality raters. It's the instructions on everything that they're going to do, and it explains their control panel. And it should be noted that this is a confidential document. This is something that I would never admit to ever seen. A good friend came to me and told me all about it. So. It's not a public document, so I'll say that as well.
Correct. That's why a lot of people are like, Jen, link it. I'm like, no way. I like being in Google's good books.
So let's talk about how this document may be structured. Jen, your post is kind of interesting here, and I've got it up. You start off with lacking in EAT, EAT. What is this EAT stuff?
So EAT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And this really shouldn't come as a surprise to a lot of SEOs because we know Google wants to push the higher quality sites. But now what they're doing at is not only just looking at is the site overall looking to be authoritative, but also the people that are contributing to the site. So if I'm contributing to a site somewhere, I've got good authority in the SEO field, and so that would benefit that site. But if you look at if someone else was posting something and they don't have that authoritativeness, it's going to reflect on that site as well. And that's part of the reason why a lot of sites that are these communal sites that take a lot of content from a lot of different sources and have people posting, there can be some pages on the site which are really authoritative because the person behind it is an expert, whereas other people can contribute and it's all spam content and or it's linking to their, my affiliateblog.com kind of thing. So it's not only about how authoritative a site is, but also the individual pages and the contributions from those individuals as well.
One of the acronyms that Google uses throughout the document a lot is EAT, and again, it's expertise, authoritativeness, or trustworthiness. So those are, we can definitely tell that Google, a lot of what the raters are looking at, is was this written by someone who's really an expert or is authoritative, and how trustworthy is this content?
Yeah, and Google's actually asking the raters if they're unsure to actually go and do research. Like go and Google the person's name. Go and Google the site. Do they have a good rep? Do they have a bad rep?
Yeah, that's
are the public reviews really good or really bad? And I mean, it does make some note that not everyone or every site is going to have like a stellar reputation, because you're going to have that one person who's like rah, 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 and had a bad experience. But they're asking people to look at the overall quality and authoritativeness and reputation of the site or the person in question.
Yeah, so Jen, you bring up a great point on there on the reputation. This is something a little bit different than some of the past versions of the quality rater guidelines, according to my friend. But they actually list in here, they talk a lot about reputation. And they even give examples, searches to run, my friend told me, like things like IBM.com or IBM-site:/IBM.com. They talk about seeing if that site has a page in the Better Business Bureau, and look at what other people are saying about that site. The reputation is really interesting, and and the things that other people are saying about you are, like, how do I say, I would hate to have a site that's a great site, but suddenly if people are talking bad about me and there's bad results that are in the top, like your site now has a pretty bad score. So looking at your reputation now, I think, is even more important. It's part of what these quality raters are actually searching your reputation. They're running Google searches. They're checking to see if other sites have reviewed you. They're asking, do you have a listing in the Better Business Bureau? Do you have a Wikipedia page? Really interesting stuff for the reputation that is in here.
Yeah, and we're very familiar with the idea of negative SEO, and with so much weight being given to this, we could see a situation where we're going to see a lot of negative reputation stuff going on, where people, we see it happening, but it's more for, leaving reviews for an actual business, like with a physical location, and it's because they want people to go to their restaurant next door or whatever, or their jewelers or whatever. But now we could see where people are going to do, instead of doing mass negative SEO backlink campaigns, we could see mass negative reputation. And so I think those people that are doing reputation cleanup are probably going to, have a really good run with it coming up pretty soon. Yeah. As soon as people start doing that, it's always hard to clean up reputation, especially because like for Yelp, for example, to get those negative reviews, you have to kind of give, good reason and evidence that, this person really wasn't at a restaurant. It's, Joe restaurant down the street who is trying to sabotage our business.
Mm. I was surprised too at one of the rating places they had mentioned. I think it was Link Trust or something, and I had never heard of it. And I'm like, Link Trust, Google's referencing this, and it was one of those sites where people can leave rep about a company. Other sites like probably even Glassdoor as well would be looked at. So anywhere where people can review sites, those are now important pages, and keeping positive reviews and the negative stuff out of the top, that now can be an SEO factor.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, just one more point on that. It's really interesting that Google actually says that in some cases that if the reputation is very high, then a medium quality page can actually be rated as a high quality page, which was an interesting line in there. So even if something is a medium quality, if the reputation of that site is very high, then you can score that particular page, which normally would be a medium, you can score it high.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely flexibility, and everyone's going to look at things a little bit different depending on their perspective and what their interests are. So I think you'll definitely see some of that. And there's other parts where, they stress just because a site has, community building it doesn't automatically make it low quality. Sometimes they are extremely low quality if you think like all the article submission sites, for example. But a place like Wikipedia that has a ton of user contributions, or some of the other, publicly sourced stuff is going to can be high quality. So there's some of it that's up to the rater, but some of it is just depending on, again, we're back to the authoritativeness and the trustworthiness of the contributors to the site.
And Jen, you make a great point in your article as well on the sempost.com, where you say that for SEOs that this is going to be crucial that you establish your writers as authorities or experts within your field. You want people to trust your site. So yeah, I mean, when we talk about authorship, there's a lot of people that when they think about authorship, they think about just Google Plus, and Google Plus, has been going with the founder of it moving to a different department, and just recently they removed the pictures from the listings, and there's lots of people that are like, oh, thanks but no thanks, Google, and we invested this time and now it's not worth like anything. And one thing that I got from reading this document is that it reaffirms in me more how important this authorship is and the trust of that person. And it's not just a Google Plus thing. Google's crawling the web, going from page to page to page, and they're looking for these things called keys that can identify that a page was written by a particular person. And that author's trust is based off of like how many documents has this person written, and how many other places have cited those documents, and who are the people that have cited those documents. And I think the authorship and author rank are more important than ever in Google, and it's definitely going to be more a part of their equation as Google tries to look at things beyond links. There's really nothing mentioned in this entire document about links. These guys aren't going in and looking at sites backlinks and analyzing, is this natural or not. A lot of what they're looking at is how trustworthy is this? Who's the person behind it? How trustworthy are these people? And these are really, really strong signals that if people are thinking that this authorship is just Google Plus, they're wrong. It's way more than Google Plus, and Google's definitely connecting these people and looking at other signals from these raters on who's a quality author.
It's going to be a lot more important for if you have people contributing to your blog or your site, to make sure that you have really awesome bios for those people as well. Like, link to their LinkedIn, because that's a great source. You can see where they've worked. You can see how many connections they have. You can get a good sense of a person just based on their work experience. Have a great bio, say how long they've been in the industry that they're writing about, if they've been published other places. Make sure you link to their Twitter account. Make sure you link to their Facebook account. Make sure you're linking to as many places as you can that's going to show that your writer is, an expert in the field you're writing about. And it's still, you see, you go to a lot of sites and they, they'll talk about the writer. Oh, this writer has been gardening for 20 years, and that's it. They don't give anything else about it. They don't talk about, an expert on vegetable gardening or anything. They might link to, their little cooking blog or something, but they're not building up any authoritativeness for their writers. And so a quality writer can come in and look at that. And this person could be the most amazing expert on vegetable gardening, but you don't know that because they just link to the country blog. They don't say, oh, this person has published 3 books on vegetable gardening, has been on, the Rosie O'Donnell show or something. There's all these things that you can use to convey an expert of your writer beyond just linking to their blog, and a lot of people are missing out on that.
You're hanging out with the Internet Marketing Ninjas. We're talking about Google's quality guideline ratings. Jen, you just hit a couple of different points here that I want to kind of bring up, and Jim, you said similar things too. I mean, how does somebody become an expert? I mean, if you got an up-and-coming writer, I mean, how do you get from, hey, I just graduated and have been in the field for a while, and I was too afraid to come out of my shell, but now here I am, and I have a lot of good things to say, and maybe I haven't been on Rosie, maybe I haven't been on all these talk shows, maybe I haven't had a ton of experience, but I've got enough to convey, and I am smart. How does one get up then in that? Now, Jen, you said these quality rating guidelines don't exactly influence the ratings, but they don't directly impact them. How, do we know what kind of impact this has? And some lady sitting off in, Kalamazoo can say, oh, this person only wrote the one blog, and while it's really cool and informational and whatnot, doesn't follow any of these other things that Google says that it should be. Well, how does the little guy get in now? Is this the rich get richer and the poor get poorer?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a ton of people, just even in our industry, when you think about it, that have come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about them, everyone's linking to them. So there's definitely room to grow in that regards. But even if you're looking for just like your own personal, growth, say, take the gardening example. Go and talk to your community newspaper and ask if they want to run a weekly column that you talk about, growing tomatoes or growing whatever vegetables in your community. You can go, there's tons of blogs out there. And even though guest blogging has, gotten a pretty bad rap the last little while because of, Matt Cutts coming out and saying guest blogging is dead, there's still a lot of value in guest blogging, but you have to think of it as guest blogging for the exposure, not guest blogging for those backlinks. And that's what a lot of people are confusing, because there is this, oh, there's no way I'm going to publish anyone because they want a guest blog. And yes, some of them are doing it and they're extremely spammy, but other ones, it's great exposure, and it's a two-way street. You're getting traffic from the person you're writing about, or the person you're writing for. It's just you're not getting a backlink for it, and so you have to look at the value beyond the backlinks.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with writing quality content that is going to be of interest to other people, and then so if you can write good quality content, then the next step is marketing the heck out of it, and a lot of that is networking. It's finding the influencers that are in your industry and the other people that are in your industry and becoming their friends on Twitter and following them and having some interactions with them. And same on Google Plus. And do they have blogs? And are there Google groups that are in this area? And are there forums that are in this area? And there's a lot of people that think that their writer should just be writing on their blog. And no, that writer should be writing on the blog, but they also should be trying to get exposed to as many other places as possible. And and the other thing is, you have to write good content, and stuff that's entertaining and original research, and then market it and network, and that's how you can become an expert.
Yeah, I mean, you think about going to conferences. There's so many people who, they'll sit in a session and they'll tweet, and they'll do hashtag whatever the conference hashtag is, and those things get retweeted all the time. Like every time I go to a conference and I cover a session, I get retweeted all over the place. And But even if you can't do something like go to a conference, there's tons of Twitter chats. Twitter chats are a great way to get exposure and meet new people in your industry, get new followers, which again will build your authority, even if you can't be a speaker or, you know, writing for one of the top publications in your industry.
Yep, I think there are a ton of opportunities right now to become an authority, especially in some specific niche. And just because you are just starting out, don't be discouraged to communicate to those influencers and trying to somehow become one. And yep, like Jen mentioned, guest columns on some great established blogs is a great option to start off when you have something to say. And Twitter chats as well is a great way. There are webinars, there are podcasts in every possible community. There are forums, and forums are, by the way, mentioned in those guidelines as well. And they say that even though they are user-generated content, they can still be helpful if there are enough authority in those forums. So obviously, those people will be looking into how many posts that person did on that forum, how long his replies are, so they're paying attention to how helpful you're trying to be, and that's nothing that can be not done. And I would say that it's even easier when you're starting out. There are a ton of opportunity, and you have more time when you're more established. So it's definitely not getting richer in this case.
Yeah, you know, I would highly recommend that, you know, all writers and experts that write for company websites have a bio page. And the bio page, as we talked, should have, you know, their history. It should link to their social, but it should also link to articles that they've written other places. It also could link to, you know, their forum profile pages if they're participating there. You know, you should link to, how do I say, places where you're seen around the web, so if a quality rater guideline goes there, they can PR, you know, they're not just writing on this blog, but they're also participating in these other places.
Yeah, that's actually a good point when you bring up the forum profiles. Almost every forum out there, they disable the profiles from being viewed by people who aren't registered. And so it's going to be really important that those forums, especially if they're trying to prove themselves as being high quality and they have some really good people posting, they need to make those profiles visible so they get indexed so that people see them when they're doing reputation searches for a specific writer. And just if they're landing on a page on your forum and they see 3 people posting, they want to look and see if the people that are answering actually know what they're talking about. If you hide that profile page, they're not going to be able to tell, and they're not going to register just to see.
And another point to, I'm sorry, another quick point to make here is that you need to be more consistent with how you name yourself throughout all the communities that you're participating in. So make sure that you have the same name everywhere. If you have already a username, most forums also allow full names, so make sure that that is completed and everything is linked from your bio page. And also, if you have a company page, make sure that it has a very complete about page and it links to all those micro celebrities that are contributing for your blog or just contributing elsewhere, and you have that very, very well laid out.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point on the about page or contact page, because in the quality rater guidelines that's talked about, and it's talked about a couple times, where part of the instructions are, you know, go to the home page and then look for the contact us page, and this is part of their their rating of trustworthiness. So for most sites, when you go to that contact page, they want to see real contact information. You know, if you're an e-commerce store and all that you have is like a simple form, you know, and no address or you know, no phone number or anything, there's a good chance you're going to lose more trust. So one of the biggest things that I'd recommend is anyone that has that contact us page, make sure you have a physical address on there, have a phone number on there. Have multiple ways, and the other thing that I would do on there as well, and me and Ann were talking about this earlier, and Ann, you just mentioned it, is from that contact page, I also would link to your expert writer as well, just to make it easier in case a quality rater guideline happens to come along and they're going to go to your contacts page and if the, oh, and here's the expert writer. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with the e-commerce, Google, it showed up in the last quality rater guideline that we saw called Your Money and Your Life. And it was specifically dealing with sites where you're giving your bank information or you're giving your credit card information. And there's a whole separate criteria that goes above and beyond kind of what your, Joe's blog needs to have on it. You need to have the contact information. You need to have shipping information. You need to have a Q&A of some sort that answers the most common questions about people trying to order from you. You need to have, make sure it's secure. You have to make sure, like, there's all these things that if you're doing any sort of e-commerce. And one of the things, they mentioned going and looking up the domain name, and this is something I've been telling e-commerce people for a while, is get rid of the privacy on your domain. People want to be able to see that there is, a physical location of where you're shipping from. But so many people are just using, hidden, and they think, oh no, it's better, I won't get spam. And it's like, well, people, there's still some people out there who are so leery about giving their credit card that they want to make sure they're not getting scammed. They want to make sure that it looks as legitimate as possible.
Mm-hmm. And even when people put their domain behind this, just kind of a side point, but there's a lot of people that think that if they do domain by proxy that they're hiding the ownership from Google, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
But Google even references in here going to, my friend told me, to go to domaintools.com, which is a registration place, and looking up the owner of the website. And Google also has a relationship with Domain Tools, and Domain Tools knows the whole history of the domain and who's registered, and Google is also a registrar,
Yep.
and basically see through all of that. So if you think you're hiding your stuff from Google, you're not. But it does bring up an excellent point that if you're someone like me, and say I own a whole bunch of websites that are in topics ranging from, I don't know, whiteboards to SEO to office furniture to who knows what, that may not be a great signal to be sending to Google. So I may want to have my main company under my name and all the other sites under something else.
Yeah,
I'll give them away to my brother or something. I don't know.
I mean, that's something that spammers have been doing for a long time. They diversify. They use a ton of different hosting companies. They use a ton of different analytics, tracking numbers. They use a bunch of AdSense accounts. They use different registrars. Like, they do everything to try to eliminate that footprint. So there's definitely, Google has its ways to try to figure out relationships between, different sites, and that's especially like when people are trying to build link networks, for example. They try to hide that link network as much as they can. But we've seen Matt Cutts tweet before, and he, haha, footprint. Who says there's no footprint? And the entire link network gets torched overnight.
You're hanging out with the Internet Marketing Ninjas. We're talking with Jen Slegg. We'll call her the search marketing consultant extraordinaire. She wrote on the SEMpost.com about Google's new quality guidelines, and we've been talking about that now for a while. I've got something to bring up here, too. We keep talking about not hiding your domain name, not hiding your location, that kind of stuff. There was an article that was published in Wired sometime early July. It was early this month, and they talked about a restaurant that somebody sabotaged the Google Maps listing and put this guy somewhere else, and then on the local business page said he was closed, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, his busiest days. This becomes an interesting conundrum too. I mean, forget community editing for a moment. What if you're just a business and he had no idea that he even had a Google Plus page, he had a business listing out there. What do we tell the people that are so, and I don't want to use the word oblivious, but I think that's probably the best word, and I don't mean it negatively, just you got somebody who has no idea all this digital everything is out there. Again, and I don't want to keep bringing this back to how do you get into this, but really and truly, how does one? I mean, does this open up? Google opened up the SEO industry for us. We always said that it's we have jobs and we do what we do and we talk about what we do because Google did search better. with this whole EAT scenario, these new guidelines kind of dictate, are we having a whole new industry of reputation management and online reputation footprint, to use Matt's word? I mean, is this a new can of worms for us, Jen?
I don't think it's a new can of worms. You know, take Andy Beal, for example. He's been doing reputation for years now, and he's probably one of the first experts that kind of got on the scene for reputation management. And it's definitely not new, but previously it was about just, you know, if your CEO did something bad and it's all over the news, you have a reputation management person, you know, come in, and while you can't get rid of those sites, well, EU thing, but that's a whole other can of worms itself, but you'd have, you know, a reputation management person come in and, you know, get news articles ranking about your CEO, talking about good things. You get your reputation management, you know, you get your Twitter account, you get your Instagram, you get all these different ways to push the bad results down. So I mean, it's definitely nothing new, but we're going to be seeing it more for, you know, the things like the restaurants. And, you know, people doing, just especially businesses that are restaurants, it's something that they're going to need to, you know, pay attention to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So much of restaurant traffic is coming from online, and we're starting to get to the point where it's going to be ignorance for people not to be paying attention to, you know, how they show up online. And, you know, for a restaurant that's failing, it's quite, I found it quite surprising that they didn't, you know, Google their name and see what came up. That kind of astonishes me when you think about they should have been paying attention to the reviews of the restaurant. You know, they should have been looking at all those kinds of things, trying to figure out why all of a sudden they're losing so much traffic.
Yeah.
Would something like this be what the quality guideline people are looking at?
Oh, for sure. I mean, they're when they go to a landing page, you know, there's nothing that says that landing page can't be a restaurant's homepage. So if they land on a restaurant's homepage or a restaurant's menu or something, they're going to go and look, and, you know, they're going to go find the Google Maps listing. They're going to go look at their Yelp. They're going to look at all these different things to try to determine, does this place have a good reputation or does it have a bad one?
If you're a company that's been around for a bit, like, we're past the stage of ignoring things like reviews or, you know, doing searches for your company name. Like, pretty much every company, you got to be searching for your company name in Google and Bing, and you need to be running your company name plus reviews as well, and you need to be aware of what is there. And if there's something that's going on somewhere that is not favorable, you can't ignore it. You know, it's like you have to go in, you have to deal with it, you have to come out the hero. That's really one of the main goals of, you know, of this, is coming out as the good guy. But if you just sit there and ignore it and pretend that you don't see it, or you're not searching for it and you don't even know it's there, like, not only is it bad for your reputation and for your branding, but it can now be hurting your chance of being ranked well in Google. These are important things, and it's not just looking at reviews, it's thinking in the back of your mind that these bad reviews over here can actually be affecting my rankings in Google over here. And, you know, I think these things are very important now. I
think we're going to see room for companies to move into the industry and be like a reputation monitor for restaurants and other local businesses, where they go and they search. You know, we'll check things like your Google Maps listing. We'll check things like Yelp. They'll check, you know, Facebook. They'll kind of run a check once a week or once every few days of basically all the areas where people could be talking about you, and alert you if there's something alarming. Because I get that not all business owners are going to be checking their reviews every day, and it's probably, you know, not that surprising that sometimes people might go several weeks without checking, especially for the types of businesses that don't necessarily get online reviews, whether it's, you know, a jewelry store or, you know, the outlet store down the street, those kind of things. I think restaurants, though, definitely have to keep a much closer eye on it overall.
So that spawns something new where people go in and check your reputation for you, and who checks the reputation checkers? That's a conundrum for another day. I think we're out of time here, though. I want to thank Jen Slegg. Thank you very much for being our guest today on the very first Hangout with the Internet Marketing Ninjas. We appreciate you and all the work you've done with reporting on Google's guidelines. Thank you very much. We can find you at what? The SEMpost.com and at
That's right.
Jenstar on Twitter, right?
That's right.
All right. And if you need help, Jen's a great resource for that, too. On behalf of Ann Smarty and Jim Boykin from the Internet Marketing Ninjas, my name is Thom Craver. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. Have a good day, folks.
Thank you.